I don't want to say it's the younger generation, but it is. It's lack of experience. It's not because they're not good at what they do. It's just that part of it, is learned. A lot of it is learned. And also like how you grow up and what generation you're in, and all of that, takes a part in how you deal with people.
Hey Giselle, welcome to the Authentic SLP. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So let's just get right in here. Tell me a little bit about you, who you are, your journey, and how you got to where you are right now.
Okay. Well, I started out as a preschool TA, and one day I went to lunch with these awesome ladies, and they told me about the speech program they were in, and I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. I was like, wait, is the speech, because I literally didn't even know what speech therapist was. I was like, is the speech lady the one that comes into the room and takes the kids out and sees them one-on-one? I want to do that. That sounds fun. I felt like even just my early stages of doing this, like as a TA, that I was not making as much of a difference as I wanted to, just even early on, because I had so many kids that I was watching that I couldn't really focus on one or two.
Right. So you felt like you were in the classroom and doing this stuff, but you weren't really helping like the way you wanted to. And you saw the SLPs come in, taking them one at a time. And you're like, oh, they can actually make a difference.
Right. That kind of kids were very involved. So they really did need one-on-one, but we didn't always have that ratio that we needed. So it was difficult. So I decided to go to school for communication disorders, and I got my undergrad in communication disorders and a minor in education. And then by that time, I was already late into my 20s. So I was like, I got married, and then I was like, wait a minute. I don't think I can go to school to be an SLP right now. That's a lot. Like, it's a really intense training.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I really love education side of it. And I have my undergrad in speech, and then at that point they had the TSHH, which was the Teacher's Speech and Hearing Handicap Certification in New York. And I was able to get my degree in education. But because my undergrad was in communication disorders, I was able to then become like an SLPA, as they name it in Florida. In New York, we were just basically SLPs that had to be supervised. It was great. So that's what I wound up going. That was the route I did.
You got your second degree then?
My master's degree was in education. Early childhood education.
Early childhood education. Wow. Okay.
Right. So, and that took me 6 years because I already had started having kids. I didn't graduate college till I was like 29, 30. I went back to school a little later, not giving my age away, but I've been doing this a long time. But I love it. And so, after that, I worked in New York for some time. But in the meantime, while I was going to school, I was doing early intervention. So after I graduated college, I went right into early intervention, and I was able to do speech in the beginning. Then they changed the rules, and I wasn't able to do speech anymore. Then I did special instruction.
So they change the rules a lot all the time in every state, just randomly, which is annoying. But then, so you said I didn't do speech anymore, but then I just early intervention. But basically, you probably did similar things. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. So you did the same thing with a different title. Got it.
Because everything is communication, right? I mean, that's where it all starts. Yeah. So then I switched over to doing special instruction. And then when I finished my master's degree and I got my TSHH, I worked in a preschool with mostly kids on the spectrum, and it was 3 to 5. And then I was able to do speech. I was just supervised like once a month. And it was great. I had my own little office, my caseload, and I loved it. And then I moved to Florida, and it was a whole different story. Like being an SLPA here, obviously the salaries were very different than New York. I mean, everything is different than New York, but the salaries were different. Finding a job wasn't easy. And even with a master's degree, it was very difficult to find work in Florida.
Yeah, because all the SLPA rules in Florida are very strange. And they don't really care if you have a master's degree in something else. They treat you all kind of like in the same, unfortunately.
Well, and then I was lucky enough to find this awesome SLP who hired me. And
wait, are you talking about me? Because I
am talking about you.
I know you worked other places too, but
no,
that was awesome. Awesome SLPA, but really SLP.
Yeah. So it was great because you gave me the opportunity to do what I loved again, which was great. And it was awesome. And I was bilingual, so I was able to, work with your bilingual population, which I loved. And actually, I'm still friends with some of my parents from there. It's crazy. Like
they still talk about you.
They still reach out. It's like the kids are in like middle school now, and they're like still like, hey, so how are you? Oh, are you like recently? A couple of years back, I did tutoring for one of my kiddos for the whole family, like all 3 kids, for like that I did speech with over there, and I was like, they still keep in touch, those relationships, those bonds that you make.
I know. And can we talk about what you did so well during COVID?
Oh, teletherapy, which I still do, which is great. I
know you are the one that can make it work for a lot of families on teletherapy, because I think you're going to get into why you're so good at it. So I'll let you finish.
Yeah. So, so after I left, I stopped doing speech, and then COVID came, and I was still doing speech through teletherapy with you. And it was great. Like I soared, like I did wonderful. I loved it. I loved working from home. And we had just bought a home, and I was a little far from you guys, so it really worked out. So I stayed on for a while doing teletherapy. It was basically, I already had most of my parents. I had already built a bond with them. And when you do that, they feel like, they want to see you. They know their kids are, improving, and, it's just that connection. So they look forward to seeing you. And I have to tell you, especially during COVID, it wasn't just the kids that were excited to see me. It was the parents. Like, that 2-minute conversation in the beginning. How are you doing? How are you holding up? Were you able to get toilet paper? Like, oh, well, I got some here. Just those conversations. And, I really built some great bonds, and they were, sometimes it was just that respite for the parent too, as much as it was for the kid. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I did really well. And, the way I made it work was like, I would, I had a strict schedule, but I was also flexible. So I would, they knew what time they were supposed to be there, but I would also text them, 10 to 15 minutes before. They're like, see you at 10:30. And then, if something came up, oh, they're still napping. Okay, well, what I would try to do was like work Monday through Thursday with my strict schedule. And then Fridays I would do makeups. So basically I didn't miss out on.
You basically took on like all the therapist schedule, and you could make it work like their schedule. So you had a very full schedule, because I think you are so good. We'll get to this connection, and especially with telehealth, those parents really needed to feel that you were invested in them, and you weren't just showing flashcards on the screen. Like you were a parent coach back then, and you still are, and you have been your whole career.
Right.
So, that connection and understanding with parents is pivotal. So you've always been really good at that. And that's why you did so well on telehealth, because it was a lot of coaching.
Yes, it really did. And, and I also took the time to explain to parents what I was doing, which was important. I think, because some of my kiddos from your office were a little older, so the parents would just walk away, so they didn't feel like they had to stay there. But I always took a couple of minutes in the beginning or the end and talked to them about what we were doing. Oh, we did this because, this will help them when they get to middle school, or this will help them in, when they get to 3rd grade and they're going to start testing, and I want to work, really make sure they're understanding stuff, and, whatever their goals were. But it's also really important to communicate with those parents.
Yes.
It's really important. And especially, COVID was so difficult for so many people. And sometimes, I was the only communication these parents had, especially when you have a special needs kiddo. Sometimes it could be very isolating. Like, you don't want to make other mom friends. and sometimes your family is the only ones you have. And if they weren't able to hang out with their families, or let's say their parents were their only sense of the outside, and their parents couldn't get on Zoom or a FaceTime or whatever, then they were isolated. And so it was, an important time to bond with them and really give them support.
Absolutely. And I think I know, as a mom of a child with special needs, like, it's hard to have play dates, and parents understand why your kids do things. And then like, you don't like to see your kid get bullied, and and they judge you for being a bad parent. Like, sorry. I mean, I know I've been in people, but my son has to watch his iPad while he eats right now, because that's the only way I can get him to do it. And don't judge me. I mean, there's just some certain things that it is really hard as a parent.
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm able to make the connection. Like, having a kiddo that was severe ADHD growing up. Like, I mean, and this was where I kind of knew, at 2 years old, like, I went to meet a college friend, and her son was 2 also. And my son literally, they both had like long curly hair. So cute. Yeah. My son like runs, we meet at the park. I go, there he is. There's my friend's son. He runs over to him, literally grabs him by the hair and yanks it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the
sorry.
Worst. I'm like, I'm in the field and I can't control my child, So I have compassion for these parents, and I always express to them and make them understand that, you don't have to make your child behave while you're on with me. I want to see everything they're doing, so that we can work on it, so that I can help you find strategies that will help support your child. And that's so important. Like, I don't want them to, they don't need to be on their best behavior while I'm on with them. I want them to do all the things that they normally do. This is your environment. This is where they, where they live. I want to see everything, Yeah. And parents, when you tell them that, it like takes off this pressure, because they get on with you and they're like, I can tell the stress in their face when they're trying too hard, when they're like, oh, he doesn't want to do that. And they're like nervous and scared. And I'm like, no, it's okay. That's why I'm here. I wouldn't be here if he was just sitting and did everything you asked. Right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm here to help you. Yeah. So let's get to work, Yeah. And then I'm like, let's try this.
In that authentic part of you, and that people see the genuineness in you, which helps them open up. Yes. That's why one of the reasons we had this podcast, Authentic SLP, just being authentic, because people they need to hear that. They need authenticity in their life, and they need people that are going to tell them the truth, and not just, always what they want to hear, but in a kind way.
Right.
So what advice would you give parents right now? What I would say that, are you kind of really focused on like the early intervention part? Probably is kind of where you're most passionate. Okay. Sure. So what kind of advice would you give? Okay. So let's say I have a 2-year-old, and he's not talking, and he's having a lot of behaviors, and he just pulled my friend's hair. What would you say to that mom in that moment? What is some advice that you would give them?
Yeah. And I'm like, it's okay. I've been there. First, I would say that because I know what it feels like, and it's okay. And then I would say, is this a typical behavior? Did they sleep last night? Has anything changed? First I always, I'm not going to jump to that. This is the child's typical behavior, because I don't know that. Right. So I ask them and kind of see, like, is this something they normally do, or is this different behavior? And then if they're like, oh, I've been dealing with this for a long time, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, okay, so have you thought of having them evaluated for early steps? And that's usually where I go. And that's what I do now, actually. After I transitioned from doing speech in Florida, I transitioned to doing early steps for New York. So luckily, my certification for New York wound up helping me greatly, because I was able to do early intervention for New York, and I still do that, and I love it. And it's virtual, and people are like, how do you? I'm like, it works. Because actually it works better than when I did early intervention in person, because the parents are my hands and feet. They're doing everything. I'm just coaching. I'm like, okay,
right.
Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to withhold that. Don't give it to him yet. Let's see if he'll ask for it, And I'm like, show him the sign for more again. And then when they do it, they're like, oh, he did it, Yeah. Like, so excited.
You're giving the parents confidence. you're saying, and I see that too. I'm on the same wave, like when it comes to that, because how I tell my therapist here all the time how important it is for parent coaching, because if you just see the therapist working with your child on the floor and you have no clue what they're doing, how are you supposed to carry that over at home? And this telehealth forces you to be the therapist. You don't have a choice. The therapist isn't in the room to do it. So you're really empowering those families to be their speech therapist at home. So that's awesome.
And I have to say, like, since I started doing this for New York, I think it was 21, I probably have returned a handful of cases, only like maybe 5. And we have a big turnaround in EI in New York. So it's like every, at 3, they come out, like they age out. So I get a whole new kid. So I've had several kids. And if I've returned 5, that's a lot. And the only reason is because the parent is not willing to do the work. It's not because of the child. I could work with any child, but I need the parent support.
Yeah.
Them to want, and it's not, I don't do it right away. I've given that a chance. I've tried, I've, coached and been compassionate and I know sometimes people have things going on and I give them grace and I don't give up easily. And some of my hardest cases have become my best. Like those are the kids that at the end, the parent was so grateful and realized the progress their child has made. And, I get the kindergarten pictures and look at this. When we remember you were his first teacher. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. So,
and I think one thing that you do really good at, and to give you a shout out compared to, you work for me, so I can say that, but some of the younger therapists that maybe haven't had kids yet, they don't know how to make those connections with families. And they often, would judge them and think like this parent should not even try. And you are really able to reach a lot of families through connections by being genuine. And a lot of those parents would have been brushed off like they're not going to carry over anything. And you saw the mom that was working 4 jobs that looked tired, but could it be like you saw the real, and you empower the parents to be the therapist. So I definitely see that in you. Compared to your therapist that might not have that experience.
Yeah. And that's, and that's a good segue because that's one of the things I'm trying to do is give those therapists that don't have children. Because I remember going into EI and not even having a child yet. Like, my approach was very different than it was after I had a child. But there was no one there to, to help me and give me some of that guidance, and that's one of the reasons why part of my coaching that I want to start doing that I have started doing is not only for parents, but also for therapists. Giving them that sense of like, sometimes that parent, you jump on and you're like, okay, hi, Johnny, how are you? The parent is right there and you haven't even acknowledged them, so I'm like, hey, and so I'm not great with names. I'll admit that, but I never forget a face. So I usually go, hi, Mom. That's usually what I do. And sometimes I know their name and it just escapes me, but menopause will do that to you. So, but I'm like, hey, Mom, and hi, Johnny, how are you? How's he doing today? Did he have a good night's sleep? How's it going? How are you? Did you have a good weekend? Literally, that's a 30-second conversation. But now I have a good connection with the parent. And that's so important. They need to know that you're invested in them just as much as you're invested in the child.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that are doing the work. And if you can't get them to buy in, if you can't get them to work for you, then you're just wasting your time. Like honestly,
and theirs.
Agreed. So one of the things that I've done trainings for your staff, which is big.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've hired you to help our staff in this and how to get parent involvement because you've been so good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've just been hired to do the same training or similar training that I did for your staff with early intervention for New York as well. So I'm very excited to do that. And I told them, and we originally were talking about doing it just for telehealth, but they were like, that parent component, it's good for in-person too. So I'm hoping that, we'll have a good turnout and because, it's, I don't want to say it's a younger generation, but it is. It's lack of experience. It's not because they're not good at what they do. It's just that part of it, is learned. A lot of it is learned. you know, and also like how you grow up and what generation you're in, and, you know, all of that, you know, takes a part in how you deal with people, you know?
Yeah. And I would just want to put a disclaimer out there because, you know, I had infertility issues. So I always say that, because just as you don't have kids, that therapist can be a great therapist on this connection. I think it's the maturity and the time sometimes that it takes to that connection. It takes time. Because I was like, I'm never gonna, you know, the PRs are gonna recommend, because so I don't like to say like, you know, just because you have kids, you're going to be a better therapist.
No, that's not the case.
But that
great, this without kids. But I'm just like, I think it's a lot of experience too.
Right. It's the experience and understanding, and that taking the time to understand your families. And that does take time. And there's nothing against young therapists. Just listen to us. Hire Giselle to talk to you, to learn how to build those connections, to not judge, to really listen to those parents, because you're not helping the kids if you're not helping the parents. So,
and also just, you know, having an expectation, like throw it out the window. Like just go in and know that you're going to do the best you can that day, and they're going to do the best they can that day. You know, if the stomach flu is going through that house and that parent still got on with you, like, we're going to make it an easy day, you know, but we're going to try to get as much as we can done. So it's like life happens. And if we're considerate of that, these parents will show up because they know you care. If you are like, oh, well, I know he's throwing up all over the place, but I still want you to get on. Can you just get on? Oh, that parent is not going to feel that same connection with you. They're going to feel like, oh, I'm just a paycheck for her. And you want them to feel that, you know, you want them to know that you really genuinely care, because if you're in this field, you should genuinely care.
Absolutely. And I think you get that from a business standpoint, and you get the parent and the SLP and the parent, you get all the perspectives that like, we still need you to show up because we do need to have a business that we need to keep funding for so that we can continue to see your child. But also, like, we understand. So there's a lot of facets and a lot of, like, I've been talking about, you know, emotional intelligence in this all.
I heard that on your podcast.
So. Yeah. It's a lot there. You need to understand and ask those questions, because you're right. The parent might not tell you that everybody in the family has the flu today. And you just get on there and think, this parent doesn't care. You can't do that. Have to ask questions. Have to assume the best in people. And then they can prove you wrong, but you start off with good expectations. So no, I really have appreciated that. And I think that's a huge thing that therapists need to learn. All therapists in every setting. So,
and sometimes you don't realize either like the impact that you have, you know? So I was on with a parent last night that we became good friends after I stopped seeing her child. And, you know, she's still going through a lot. You know, the child has a lot of stuff going on. And all I did was show up, you know, because we did what we could, you know, and I helped her engage with the baby more, because that was one thing that was lacking, right? And she went on for like 5 minutes yesterday telling me how much she appreciated the fact that now she can engage with her child. She was like, I didn't have that before, and you were the one that helped me to do that. And the reason we got into this conversation, because she had a service coordinator come to her house and said, oh, I didn't know she was on the spectrum. And I'm like, she was so mad. Mom was so mad. She was like, we need more people like you that know and like care and want to help. Like, this girl just showed up to my house. She had no clue what was going on with my child. And she's supposed to be, and this is like the 6th service coordinator that she's had. And she's like, I'm just so frustrated, you know, like, I want to find more people like you that care. And I want to be able to like make you guys available to others. She's like, because it's not fair that we have to go through this as parents. Like, someone comes into my house and has no clue what's even going on with my child, and they're supposed to help me. It's frustrating. It really is.
Yeah. And you know, you have to take when it comes to state funding and stuff, you kind of have to take what you get. which stinks. And I know I have to say that, you know, we both were in this field to help people. Yep. So, you know, as Bay said, we're actually trying to get away from Medicaid, and not because we don't want to help that population. It's just, I was paying my billing company $10,000 a month just so I could take Medicaid. I'm getting in the red to help, and I cannot function as a business and continue to help kids if I'm this way. So we're trying to go more private pay, more scholarships, more grants,
right?
Because of this reason. And I think that you're kind of seeing this too. Yes. If it's possible, finding grants and scholarships and those things will help you get better services. And they're out there for all incomes too, right?
Definitely. Like the Step Up Scholarship in Florida. So I take that, the unique abilities speech. So fortunately, I'm able to do it as an SLPA, which is great. And I have a couple of kiddos in my neighborhood that I see in person, and they just happen to have the scholarship, and it works out perfectly.
That scholarship is amazing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it really is. And like you were talking about your other podcast, like I need to educate myself more on what other scholarships are out there for my kids, and for the parents, because I'm sure there's scholarships out there that would, you know, pay for my coaching for the parents that can't afford it. You know, that because it's difficult, but it's necessary.
It is. Because if you don't get your kid, and this is kind of what I'm doing, if you don't get your kid in the right place, with the right therapist at an early age, you can miss out on a lot of things. And then, you know, so many things like, you know, yes, there's ASD, ADHD stuff, but also like orthodontic wise with like tongue position. Like there's so many things that you can miss out if you don't catch it before their face is developed at a certain age. So if you are just seeing someone because your insurance takes it at the hospital for 3 years, but nothing's getting done, it's a waste of everybody's time.
No.
So finding the right providers. So saying that though, who do you think, so you're great for training for speech therapy clinics. We've hired you. We'll probably have you come back consulting. One of our therapists, you maybe don't have that. And I do think it comes a little bit natural for you and doesn't for others. And that's okay. People can learn to be that way and understand. What other things are you like, just tell me, what is your new business? Tell us all about it and what you're doing. And we're excited. Go ahead.
Yes. So I'm very excited. So the name of my new business is Growing Connections. So I always felt, and I've always told you this, like even when I worked with you, that I felt my God-given gift was to be able to connect people. You know, I love sharing resources because you know how important that is, right? If a child needs a good OT, we need to have someone in our back pocket that we can, you know, let them know about. Because it's just that sharing of information makes such a huge difference in people's lives. Mm-hmm. You know, it could mean the difference between that child getting the services at 2 or at 6, which we know developmentally how important it would be to get it at 2. So just, I talk to everyone. It's also like a gift of mine that I can talk to anyone. And because of that, I've met so many people and I love connecting them. So, you know, what I would love to do is be able to, you know, a lot of like what I do in EI, you know, just coach these parents that need that extra help. And it could be anything from like, you know, I need help getting my kid on a schedule, which is so important for everything, you know?
Yeah.
My kid is not talking yet, you know, well, let's try a few things if you want before. Like, I love that training that you did for the parents. What's it called? The,
Tiny Talkers program.
Yes. That's a great idea. And it's kind of similar to the idea with early steps, except it's like less time, but you really will be able to know within 3 months if a child needs more services or not. You don't need to do 3 years of early steps, but, but you know, something like that where I can, you know, get on with these parents and we can discuss what the next steps are, just guiding them. I do that for so many of my friends and family members. And I'm just like, I really want to do more of that. So that's where I've been doing this for so long that it comes second nature to me. I just want to share what I've learned, you know, in the coaching of therapists, in the coaching of parents, you know, and just helping them be successful, you know.
Getting in the right places sooner. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
And having that background and early intervention is so important. And I know because one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I'll do an eval and like they leave with a packet of places and things that they should go to, and all the parents are like, I wish I would have found you sooner. Me too.
Right.
You know,
no,
so
it's true.
It's helping them get in the best places they need to be. So that is awesome. That you're doing that. I also think it's great that you are bilingual, because
that's awesome.
And I'm sure that's a huge need, and that you really do connect with those families.
Okay.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of finishing up, but I wanted to hear a little bit more. I kind of started the question, we got just sidetracked. But those parents, again, 2 or 3, who are struggling with behavior or language, what 3 things of advice you would give all parents from under like around 2 to 3? They're starting to see some things. What advice would you give? 3 things of advice.
Right. So first I would ask, like, is this consistent behavior? Like we talked about, right? I would find that. The other thing is I would ask, how much TV and how much iPad and phone are they doing? Because honestly, that makes a huge difference. And I would try to get them to lower that number by, like, I'm not saying take it away completely, because I get it, but at least, by a percentage over a week, and see if there's a change. And, this, I've literally seen, like, I had a baby that was so frustrated during our session. And I was like, what was he doing before we got on? Well, he was watching TV. He had the iPad. And I'm like, can we try not doing that right before the session and just see how it goes? Yeah. And the next mom took it really literally. And she was like, he is not. I said, you can put music on. You can put the music from the videos. He doesn't necessarily have to watch them, just so you could sing with him and play with him. The next day, it was only 1 day after. And it was a completely different kid. He sat on the floor, played with mom for 10 minutes straight, and was the happiest kid, and followed directions and rolled the ball back with her. And it was like, wow. And mom was like, yeah, he's not watching any more TV. I'm like, well, you don't have to eliminate completely, but it is important for parents to understand how that impacts them, the children. And then the other thing, the next step would be, early steps, get them an evaluation. I would do that. And then if, they're concerned about speech and language, then, they can, a lot of times they have to go to their pediatrician first, which they might say, oh, they're fine, and go with your gut. If you feel like something is going on, do not back down, until you get what you need. Get that evaluation. And if your child is bilingual, it's very important to get the evaluation in both languages, because if there is something going on, it's going to show up in both languages, not just one. So it's very important that if it's a Spanish-speaking child, you get a bilingual therapist that's going to evaluate them in Spanish and in English if they're speaking both languages. It's very, very important that you do that. Because a lot of times they'll go, oh, no, it's fine. It's just that, he's just a late talker because he's learning Spanish too. No. Okay. It's going to show up. If there's something going on, it's going to show up. And it's very important that you do that. And then follow up, like, be consistent. I have parents that'll be like, yeah, we had the paperwork done and we started, and it's like a year later. And now the child is 3 instead of 2, and they're still not talking. So now the chance of them developing those skills is going to take a lot longer than if we would have started when we were 2. So be diligent and just stay on it. Get done what you need to get done for your kiddo, and find people that you trust, and get on. I mean, I know it can be isolating, and you may not want to talk to your family members about what's going on. Find mom groups on Facebook and take everything with a grain of salt, because not everybody's experience is going to be the same as yours, but you might find some resources. You might be like, oh, you have a good doctor, a good developmental pediatrician. That's the other thing that you may need if you're thinking that your child may be on the spectrum. Like, is there a developmental pediatrician that can get me in before 6 months from now? Or like a neurologist that can get me in before a year. And I know those resources are hard to come by, and that, that's one of my goals too, is to gather these resources and have them available for parents. So
time wait list. Yeah. All those things.
One-step shopping. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Speaking of just kind of dig in that a little bit more because I am not bilingual and give some advice. If I am a parent who speaks more than one language and I'm having a baby, give me the advice. What do I do? Do I speak one language? Do I speak both languages? What do I do?
Speak both languages, for sure.
I knew that, but I still that's the only thing I know. But can you elaborate why? Because I can't answer that.
I mean, there's so many benefits to a child being able to speak both languages. And there's different ways you can approach it. You know, some parents say, you know, one person one language. So maybe the dad will only speak in Spanish and the mom will only speak in English. You don't have to do it that way. The child is smart enough. And that's where the cognitive skills like go through the roof with these kiddos because they know how to separate and say, well, I'm going to talk to grandma in Spanish and I'm going to talk to mom in English, you know, or you might say, oh, well, they only have 25 words, but they have them in both languages. No, they actually have 50 words. So
I wouldn't know that. See, right. I didn't know that you would count that as 50. Okay.
Yeah, because it's another word. I mean, so
right.
Yeah. No, it's fine. But these kiddos, you know, it's so important. Like I have a little girl, like she's so smart. Oh my gosh. I had her from 18 months till 3 when she just aged out. And she did not say a word when I started with her. And I was her only teacher. And I would do like one day in Spanish and one day in English, early intervention, because I wanted her to develop the skills in both languages. But she's so funny. Like she'll get on with me and she'll start talking to grandma in Spanish. And then she talks to her sister in English. And she's so cute. And it's like her vocabulary is great now. Like you have to hear her, you know, I don't want that. And then she'll tell the grandmother, yo quiero arroz, you know, like she's like, you know, and it's like, she's only 3 and her vocabulary is insane now. So
when, this is a question I have as SLPs, other SLPs are listening. So when I have a kid in here that, sometimes, even though I tell them I'm not Spanish, they somehow come in here and they only speak Spanish, even though we tell them we don't do it. So I do my best to like ask them questions on ChatGPT. But if the child is learning 2 languages at one time, is there a delay or should there be a delay at all?
I mean, every child develops differently, right? So if there's going to be a delay, there's going to be a delay. Like it'll show up, right? I mean, but there is sometimes when, like, let's say a child is primarily at home and now they start school and now they're incorporating English when they've only learned Spanish. So there might be that period of like, you know, that quiet period where they're just separating the languages in their brain and figuring it out, you know, and that's just part of the process. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be delayed, but it just means that at this moment, they're not really using their language because they're separating it. They're figuring it out.
That's what my thought was. Because I feel like I've seen that a lot when the kids are like, they're just separate. Once they get it, it's like, whew. But at the beginning, it might just take them time to separate it in their brain because every kid is so different. I'm sure there are some kids that process it that way.
But that's why it's important to also evaluate them in Spanish, because if everything's developing appropriately in Spanish, then there's not
a reason.
It's just a difference because they're learning now.
Okay, that's really good to know because there's things that like, this is not my wheelhouse. So
right.
That's a great service too. All right. Any last things of advice that you would like to give families or anything else that you would like to end with?
Share your story. It's important, you know, and I know sometimes it's hard, you know, we feel isolated. We want to be private. But I don't know if it's because of my generation or I'm very open about everything, you know, my issues with my son and him having ADHD early on and my medication journey with him. And now he's 21 and he was like, Mom, that was the best thing you ever did was put me on medication. He's like, I have friends that weren't on medication and socially I could see the difference. Like they weren't able to develop those social skills that they need, you know, and he has a great job at Tampa General and he's a great kid. And for him to come and tell me, you know, because it's a hard decision for a lot of parents, you know, and I never push parents to do one or the other. I just share my journey. So sometimes by just sharing your journey with another parent, you can help them. So I think it's important to do that. You know, it's your testimony, what you've been through with your child, and it's so important. And, you know, just share resources. Don't gatekeep. Like, there's no need to do that.
Yeah, well, we talked about before between therapists, like there's enough kids for everybody to see. So if you're not a good fit for a child, please refer them.
Yes.
We do the same thing. If I'm not a good fit, this isn't my specialty. Let me tell you about, so that's the reason I'm doing this.
Yeah. And so don't gatekeep about, other information like school stuff. And like, I'll put stuff on my community page about Step Up or anything going on in the community, because that's how I roll. I just want to share. I want to connect.
Yeah.
And I want people to have those resources. It's so important, and everything's so expensive these days. Like, if there's something free going on that's going to make those core memories with your child, like, I'm going to share them, because that's awesome. We want it for them, right?
I love that. I love that about you. And then, so last thing, how can people find you?
Okay.
If they want to, clinics, therapists for your expertise and training, and then parent training and coaching, how can they find you?
So they can go to my website, growingconnections.com, or they can email me at info@growingconnections.com. And
how can you spell that out for me?
Grow, EROWIN, connections with an S.com.
And I will put that in the show notes too. But just anybody's listening who doesn't have a pencil.
Right. No, it's very exciting. And, I will continue to do speech as well, and, early intervention. But, my heart is really on that, specifically coaching, not only therapists, but parents, and, and helping them be their best advocates for their children. I've had so many parents come in as a lamb and leave as a lioness. And I'm like, yes, like, they're so passive at first, and you help empower them. And when they leave you, they're like, I'm my child's best advocate. And I'm like, yes, you are.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. So thanks so much for your time, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Have a great day.